This might look like a typical small little restaurant with a small little shop in the back. However, this is actually the entrance to a speakeasy inside Resorts World in Las Vegas. Continuing in the theme of completely unreasonable audio locations, welcome to the Here Kitty Kitty Vice Den within the bowels of the Resorts World, resort, casino, hotels, spas, shops, and poker rooms. I went with the Waffle House beverage, which is a concoction made of bourbon, bacon-washed maple flavorings, and an ice cube with paw prints on it. Cheers, let's find out. Very much acceptable. 8.9 out of 10. I want to tell you guys about a crazy poker session that happened last night at this very property on the Las Vegas Strip. It was a very swingy one. We were in for many thousands of dollars. First things first, though, there is a giveaway that I'm happy to announce. You guys might remember about 8 or 9 months ago, I went on a WPT/Virgin voyage. It was an amazing cruise. I got third place in the main event that we ran during that event. And awesome news is that the WPT is running it back. It's going to be bigger and better this time. Got the entire cruise ship. There's a prime main event. There is a main tour main event. Mike Sexton Cup is going to be won by somebody. And that somebody could possibly be you because WPT is giving me a cabin to give away. I'm going to post a tweet at 2 p.m. Monday, which if everything goes to plan will be the same day that this vlog is released. If you want to win a free cabin on the next WPT Virgin voyage, which will be happening in early 2024, find that tweet, retweet it, tag a friend, and follow WPT. If I can best my third place finish in the main event on this Virgin voyage, it will be a very fantastic voyage. You guys see what I did there? Fantastic, fantastic voyage. Coolio, and so, as mentioned last night, a very wild session of poker at Woodtown. We were playing 5, 10, 20 at Resorts World. Resorts World, kind of a hidden gem. Great room, great staff. There was a 5, 10, 20 game going last night, and I was in there. Within the first hour, I got tons of playable hands. Just about every single one of them with the flop. In the early going of this game, I had ace-jack, pocket sevens, pocket nines, queen 10 suited, 7-5 suited. Of course, all of these hands are playable either to a raise or I'm the one in there raising. When every single one of those hands whiffs, that's an easy way to get stuck $550 right off the bat. There's also a couple of fun wrinkles to this game. Just like the 7 deuce game, but it's a random drawing of hands. And in this game, 9-5 was the bounty hand. So win any hand with 9-5 suited or offsuit. Every player owes you $40 to start the game. Later on, that would become a $100 bounty. There was also double board PLO Bob Bods every dealer change. An interesting hand came up where I ended up chopping the pot, but I came very close to throwing away not only half of the pot, but my entire stack when I almost misread my opponent's hand for a scooping hand, but turns out I get half the pot. I keep my stack, end up profiting a little bit in the hand, but very close to losing about $3,000 in this hand.
That was good. Oh, you don't have a straight. I guess it says 60. Sorry, I thought you had a straight on the bottom.
Later on, there's a hand that comes up where there's an early position raised to $40. Player in the hijack 3-bets to $120, and we look down at queen and jack suited on his direct left in the cutoff. I definitely want to play this hand. Cold calling is never really that great. It definitely caps our range because I would never ever do that with the strongest of hands. So whenever possible, we want to put in a 4-bet rather than a cold call. I decided to do that. I decided to put in the 4-bet here with the queen jack suited. I make it $300 to go. The initial raiser calls. Player on my right who put in the 3-bet gives me a good look over before making the call. Heads up to 8, 3, deuce, rainbow with 1 heart. Checks it over to me, not the worst flop. We're gonna have the strongest hands here usually, aside from 4 or 5, although maybe I could even mix in the occasional small suited connector into my 4-bets once in a while. Don't have to bet too big here. I continue with a C-bet of $160, and my opponent makes the call. Turn is an offsuit queen, so we do improve to a pair. My opponent checks, and I decide to slow it down with a check here. River pairs the board. It's another deuce. This time my opponent leads out for $440. So we have a couple of options on the table here. 3 options really. Call, fold, or raise. I think calling is probably the worst of those options amongst the 3. We can't beat any value bets in this spot though, because it's not like he's going to be value betting pocket jacks on this board. So calling doesn't seem great. Folding definitely seems reasonable, and raising seems very reasonable. In fact, I go in the tank trying to find the courage to find the raise here. And in fact, I say that out loud.
Debating jamming all in. Probably should.
I get up to about 50 or 65% of the way to finding a jam here over his river bet. We're going to have pocket aces. We're going to have pocket queens. Ace queen seems unlikely for him because we're going to block that hand. I decided the second best option. I decide on a fold, and then my opponent promptly shows me the 9-5 offsuit for not only the stone cold bluff, but it is the bounty hand. So to add insult to injury, we have to pay him $40 on top of awarding him the pot. When we fold away our pair of queens, give him the pot with 9 high. Should have pulled the trigger there. Always easier said than done when you just ship your money in there, ship thousands of dollars in, and happen to get snapped off with like threes full or something. But those kinds of hands are tough to make. Should have done it. Should have pulled the trigger. So we're stuck here in the early going before this hand comes up. There's a limp in the hijack spot. We're on the button looking down at king-queen offsuit. A very raisable, very standard. Raise it up to $40. Folds back to that limper who now raises. He puts in a raise up to $140. Very rarely see the limp re-raise out of late position. Limp re-raises are usually pretty strong, but I didn't come all the way down to the middle north end of the strip to fold king-queen offsuit on the button. So I toss in the call. We go heads up to a flop. King 5-3 with 2 clubs, flops the top pair for us. My opponent leads out for a continuation bet of $300. Strong, very strong. Already not loving it, already hating it. Got ourselves top pair queen kicker. Can't do much about it other than make the call. Turn is 9 of hearts, second heart, and once again my opponent bets $300. So even though it is the same price, it is a much smaller percentage of the pot now than it was on the flop. Still hating it, but don't think we can do too much now that it is a essentially, I don't want to say down bet, but percentage-wise, very much a down bet. I toss in the call. We're off to a river. Offsuit 8. Now my opponent checks it. I am very happy to check it here on the river, and sure enough, we get shown ace king of diamonds. Just wrecked and owned here in the early going. He finds the limp re-raise. Unfortunately, we find a king-high flop, which means we're going to lose some amount of money. I feel like we lose pretty close to the maximum, even though the river went check. Not a great situation there. Another loss of $740. Very much in the hole now. All right, double straddle on in this hand, playing a 5, a 10, 20, 40. Action folds around to the small blind, who raises up to $120. And we look down at a relief, pocket aces, and a double straddled raised pot. Gonna go ahead and 3-bet this one up to $360. Folds back to the small blind, who makes the call. So heads up to a flop that comes down 5-5 deuce, which under normal circumstances would be fantastic. But in this exact situation, the main bluffing hand pre-flop is going to be 9-5 offsuit, of course, along with some other hands as well. But that is one less hand that neither of us can beat now. My opponent checks it. We're going to have to bet something and try to go for value. I bet $130, but sure enough, my opponent says I can't even beat 9-5 here and throws his hand away. So, granted, we do get a 3-bet in the double straddle pot, which means we win a fairly significant pre-flop amount. But it's not the pot of dreams that we were hoping for. It's still in the hole, very much. All right, at this point, a few very fun, very friendly Israeli gentlemen have joined our game, looking for fun, looking for action. It's kind of a short-handed game. We're still 6-handed here. We were very short. We were playing 3 or 4-handed for a little while there. We're up to 6-handed now. Straddle is on, and the 9-5 bounty hand is up to $100 per person. So if anyone wins with that hand, they are going to be awarded $100 from every player. Straddle is on. We're first to act, looking down at Jack 10 of clubs under the gun. I'm going to go ahead and raise this one up and make it $50 to go. Player on my direct left calls before action folds around to the small blind, and that player puts in a 3-bet. Pretty significant size of $350. Action back over to me. I'm in no mood to fold at this point. Definitely not Jack 10 suited, one of the prettiest hands in the entire universe. I make the call. Player on my left calls as well. 3 ways to a flop with Ace Jack 8, 1 club. He bets $400. Got ourselves middle pair here in 2 backdoor draws. Can't do too much other than make the call. The player on my left folds. Turn is an interesting card. It's an offsuit 10. That gives us 2 pair, but of course we're still losing to a bunch of hands here. King Queen is very much within range. Pocket aces. Anything is possible in this game at this point. My opponent does go ahead and rip it all in here. It's about $1,000 effective. That's where my stack sits at the moment. My opponent covers me. We don't have too much choice here. We turn 2 pair. Gotta dance with a girl that... I think that's a phrase. I make the call. He asks if I want to go once or twice. I say I don't care. It's up to him. He says he doesn't care. I say I don't care. He says he doesn't care. I say okay once. One time it is. We're off to a river card, which is a total brick. Offsuit deuce on the river, and my opponent says you're good. So maybe some chance that he had the bounty hand, some chance he had the 9-5 offsuit. Very good chance of that, I would say, considering that this board should be all over a typical 3-bet range. And if he's just barreling away, the 9-5 offsuit, very good possibility that's what it was. We get a much needed win here. Try and claw back some winnings and move in the right direction. I mentioned earlier on that there's double board PLO bomb pots happening in this game, $50 a man. We played ourselves a very significant double board PLO bomb pot. We can jump straight ahead to the turn action in this hand because there was no action prior to that. We got ourselves ace, king, 8, deuce, double suited at clubs and hearts. So the two boards are as displayed here. And as you can see on the top board, we've got 2 flush draws. And on the bottom board, we've got top 2 pair. There's a wager to $400 from an early position player on the turn. There's a call, and with our holding here, having top 2 pair on one board and half the deck on the other board, I think we can find a raise here. It's tough to know exactly what to do and what is most optimal in double board PLO bond pots. That's what makes them a great part of any poker game. I suggest adding them into your poker game if you can get the players to agree to it. So we go ahead and pot it here on the turn. I raise it up to somewhere around $2,000. Both players make the call. So we've got ourselves a pot of over 6K, maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of 7K, something like that, going to the river with a couple of $1,000s left to play for. It's funny when the music gets a little bit more quiet and I'm just blabbering away about double board PLO bomb pots and thousands of dollars here in the kitty vice den. This one, I'm going to give a 9.2. So we're off to the river cards, and they are not the river cards of dreams. On the bottom board, the river is a jack, so we no longer have top 2 pair. And on the top board, we break both of our flush draws, which is very sad news. Player in early position sticks it in. Player on my right calls, so this is a very tough spot here. We are getting an incredible price. There is somewhere around $10,000 in the pot. We're not going to win the top board, but we have a very reasonable 2 pair on the bottom board. Chances are we're still good on the bottom board. And like I said, we're getting a fantastic price, but I only have to win half this pot to profit. So I'm going to go ahead, call it off for my remaining $2,000 or so, and we get shown terrible news. Very, very sad, very terrible news. My opponent in early position he's got a better hand. He's got top 2 pair now on the bottom board, King Jack, and he has the nuts on top, the nuts straight with Jack 9 or whatever it is, Jack 8, Jack 9, one of those. Punished in a double board PLO bomb pot. Guys, I recommend nobody ever plays double board PLO bomb pots. If people want to play them in your games, try and talk people out of it. Mostly kidding. I still love these things, but we're just absolutely demolished now. We are stuck absolute piles. We're down 5K or 5,500 or something like that. Not going well. All right, one more hand to check out here in this game of insanity happening in Resorts World. We're playing 6-handed and the straddle is on. There's an early position raise to $50. The player in the small blind makes the call, and we look down at pocket queens in the big blinds. Obviously, 3-betting and make it $250 to go. We could make it a little bit bigger here since there's plenty of action to be found in this game, and we're out of position versus 2 players. We could make it $300 to $350, but I'd go $250, and both players make the call. $750 plus in the middle. 3 ways to a flop. Jack 5 deuce with 2 spades. About as good as we could ask for. No overcards to the pocket pair. Gonna fire away after the small blind checks it. I put out a C-bet of $220. Player in early position who initially raises 1 gives me a little bit of a look before deciding to let it go. And the player in the small blind does quite the opposite. He goes ahead and check raises up to $1,500. I'm gonna take my time here. Of course, I'm never ever folding. I'm gonna take my time though, make it look like I'm thinking things over before tossing out the call. We're heads up to a turn card, and before we see it, my opponent now checks dark. Feeling pretty good about my hand now after he does that. The turn is another 5, pairs the board, and I feel like this is often going to be a way ahead or way behind situation. I decided to play a little bit tricky and just check back here on the turn. Again, assuming that I'm way ahead or way behind. Granted, there's a flush draw on the board on the flop, but I don't think my opponent would check dark with those holdings. I'm making some assumptions here, kind of a lot of them, which is a thing that you can often do in live poker. Just trying to make the occasional live read here and navigate my way through a very bloated pot here now with our pocket queens. We're off to a river card after I check back the turn, and that river card is another deuce. My opponent now takes it upon himself to toss out a 5K chip, which covers us. I've got about $4,000 in my stack. That 5K chip covers our stack, and we've got ourselves a decision. So if my opponent happens to have a 5 or a deuce that he was turning into a semi-bluff on the flop, he now has a full house. Chances are he does not have a jack, I guess anything is possible, but would he be betting the maximum for value with a jack on the river? I would say signs point to no, so chances are he doesn't have a jack. A 5 or a deuce is definitely possible. A misdraw, I suppose, is also possible. So chances are full house or a bluff here. But we've got ourselves the overpair that is under-repped after we check back the turn. I don't think we have too much of a choice here, honestly. I have to take my time because it's a large wager, but I don't think I have too much of a choice, and I just have to talk it through in my mind and out loud. Eventually, I go ahead, toss in the call, and we get shown the 7-4 offsuit. We're dragging in a big one here. Not only is it a big one, it's one that is big enough to get us unstuck in this game somehow, some way. We were buried. At one point, we were down $5,500 or so. I had to go reload. I had to take a walk. I had to get some more money. I had to bring it back to the table. And it was the right decision because we somehow get all the way unstuck in this game.
Just wrapping up the session here at the Resorts World Poker Room, which is a fantastic location here on the Las Vegas Strip. And they didn't even pay me to say that. We had a swinging one today. It ended up being a good one. We got into this game for a mere $8,500. We cashed out of this game for $9,855. So we got ourselves a $1,355 worth of profit, which we are, of course, pleased with, considering that we were stuck piles and in danger of losing even more piles. Did I mention that there's a self-serve coffee machine over here that serves iced caramel macchiato?
Very fun game. I will probably be finding myself hanging out at the Resorts World here and there. I say it was a very fun game. Granted, it's never fun when you're absolutely buried. But in the end, all is well. Life is good. We are able to enjoy, by the way, I didn't mention the name of this cocktail. This is the Gold Digger. Found ourselves some gold in the poker game at the Resorts World. I don't know, that's not the best metaphor. Lots more poker to come here on the channel. We're going to be splashing around a lot more cash games, both live and online. In the live realm, we're off to Graton Casino in Northern California, Brad Owen's hometown. We got a meetup game coming up there. Hope you guys can join us if you happen to be on the West Coast or West Coast accessible. And of course, when it comes to online poker, you can find me on WPT Global. I'll be splashing around the cash games there, both No Limit and Pot Limit Omaha. Very, very fun games. You can use code Andrew. That'll get you a deposit bonus match up to your first $1,200. And trying my best to crank out the content right here on the channel. If you're digging it, would love it if you would click the subscribe button. It helps me and it helps you find more poker content and more